From the OG dog and storm dragon to a heavily armored explosives maniac, here are 17 of the champions that were once meant to roam Summoner's Rift. Starting at number 1 we have Shin. Before Hydrosoul soared onto the Rift, there was Shin, the storm dragon who was meant to be League's true guardian of the skies, a mighty protector of the natural world. Legend said that when Ionia faced its greatest crisis, Shin would descend from the heavens to restore balance. First revealed in 2013, he was envisioned as a sleek Eastern-inspired serpentine storm dragon, but then Riot went completely silent on him for 2 years. By 2016, it was clear that Shin wouldn't be making his grand entrance. Instead, his concept evolved into the cosmic Forgeborn Hydrosoul that we know today. Though Shin never took flight, his legacy lives on in Hydrosoul's storm dragon skin as a direct tribute to the stormy serpent that could have been. At number 2 we have Avasha. Not much is known about Avasha's lore, but she was designed to be Summoner's Rift's deadly vampiric bladesmate. Her passive granted her lifesteal, much like Nasus, but with a twist. It also amplified all the lifesteal effects she received. If she landed an auto attack or her vampiric bite on an enemy, she'd gain bonus damage and movement speed for 5 seconds, making her an even deadlier duelist. Her Q, Vampiric Bite, functioned similarly to Trundle's Charm, crippling enemies by reducing their movement speed and attack speed. With her W, Siphoning Blade, she could steal damage from her foes, adding it to her own attacks, making auto attackers tremble in fear. Then there was her E, Blood Shield. Not just any shield, but the one that scaled with attack damage and boosted her attack speed, turning her into a life-stealing nightmare. Finally, her ultimate shivering cry was the true terror. This chilling scream slowed enemies by up to 90%, while also silencing them and reducing their damage output by 30%. Basically, if you find AP Twitch annoying, then Avasha would have been your worst nightmare. At number 3, we have Averdrian, the Astral Guardian. Averdrian was a mysterious otherworldly being with a giant head and glowing eyes, looking like he just floated in from a cosmic dream. Unlike most champions, he didn't use mana for his abilities, he relied on astral spirits instead. His Q, Astral Beam, would fire an unstoppable light attack, while his W, Detonate, unleashed an energy pulse that slowed enemies. His E, Consume Spirit, let him absorb one of his spirits for bonus spell damage and a lingering damage aura, and his ultimate, Lockdown, trapped an enemy in deadly energy, suppressing them while dealing damage over time. This was the inspiration for what we know as the Nether Grasp, Malzahar's annoying ass pressing ultimate, but Lockdown would channel for 5 seconds, meanwhile Malzahar's is a measly 2.5 seconds. Though he never made it to the Rift, Averdrian still left his mark. His coffin cameo on the Harrowing map skin in 2010 was a cheeky way for Riot to confirm his fate. Number 4. Ceecee, the Hextech Engineer. Ceecee was once meant to be a game-changing support, armed with a giant mechanical workbench to fend off attacks and help her ADC take control of fights. She was created during Riot's push to make supports more impactful, a champion who could do more than just heal, buff, or crowd control. At first, her design focused on versatility, but as development went on, Riot became more interested in the idea of a pure shield-based support. This shift in direction eventually led to Ceecee being scrapped, making way for a new champion, the beloved Braum. Number 5. Marduk, the Fisher of Souls. Long ago, there was Dr. Mark Strauss, an ambitious archaeologist who vanished deep within the caves of South Arden. His research into dark energies took a tragic turn when those very forces consumed him, stripping away his flesh and leaving behind only a skeletal husk with glowing yellow eyes. No longer the man he once was, Marduk wandered the world, cursed to harvest the life force of others. At number 6 we have Seth, the Sand Mage. Seth was meant to be League's original master of sand, wielding dust and grit as his weapons. His magic depended entirely on his environment. As long as he was near sand, he could cast spells and gain buffs, but without it, he was significantly weaker, making his power situational rather than consistent. Ultimately, Riot decided to take the sand-wielding fantasy in a different direction. Instead of a mage bound to the terrain, they created a seer, as we know him, giving him the power to command an unstoppable sand army rather than the dust around him, and also making those sick-ass clips. At number 7 we have Omen, the Lost Voidborn. Omen was one of League's strangest cancelled champions, a quadrupedal, Voidborn-like creature that Riot just couldn't figure out. Was he supposed to be a bruiser, a ranged DPS, or something entirely different? No one could agree, and as a result he spent most of his time in development drifting between ideas without ever finding a clear identity. Eventually, Even though he was halfway through development, Riot decided that he just wasn't getting any better and scrapped him. In his place, Riven was introduced, even causing a patch delay to make room for her debut. While Omen never made it to Summoner's Rift, pieces of him live on. His design influenced Rek'Sai, and a skeletal creature resembling him appears in Jurassic Cockmore's Splashheart. Nonetheless, we did get a more modern Omen-style champion in Neferi. At number 8, we have the Cyborg Cowboy. Not much is known about Cyborg Cowboy, but from what little we do have, he sounds like he could have been one of League's most stylish gunslingers. A bounty hunter with a mechanical twist. He was designed around tracking and collecting bounties, an idea that was later reworked into Kindred's passive. While his cybernetic western aesthetics never made it to the Rift, it clearly left a mark. His visual theme inspired Jin, and while Jin himself went in a completely different direction, the spirit of the Cyborg Cowboy lives on in High Noon Jin, where the virtuoso takes on a gunslinger form with a similarly eerie, otherworldly presence. At number 9, we have Gavid, the Plant King. Born as a humble sprout, Gavid grew into a massive, untamed jungle near Demacia, until the kingdom's foresters came with axes in hand, just hacking his kin into firewood crazy style. Enraged, Gavid vowed vengeance, setting out to bury humanity beneath his living thorns. His gameplay would have been a nightmare to deal with, constantly spawning vines that could transform into thorn spitters, turret-like attackers, entanglers, rooting traps, and vitalis plants, healing stations. And, as his ultimate, he would entrench himself, bring an army of vines and unleashing them all at once. And if it didn't pop up in your mind already, this champion pretty much exists already, and that is Syra. But Gavid did come before Syra anyway, but yeah. His fate was sealed in 2010. Harrowing map as well, where his coffin lay among the 2 other scrapped champions. At number 10, we have Husk, the Hive Commander. Once, Husk was Caitlyn's trusted partner and deadly enforcer with an unbreakable bond. That was until one mission went horribly wrong. In a brutal shootout, Caitlyn turned on her, leaving Husk paralyzed and abandoned. Broken, but not beaten, she vanished into Zaun's underbelly, rebuilding herself with tech enhancements and forging a new identity as the ruthless leader of Hive, a crew of mercenaries, outlaws and bounty hunters. Gameplay-wise, Husk was never fully realized, but her concept eventually split into 2 champions. Camille, with her cybernetic precision, and Kaisa, the adaptive survivor. At number 11, we have Ivan, the Mad Bomber. Ivan was a maniac with love for bombs and a perfect smile, so he'd spend hours polishing his teeth just so the victim's last sight would be his vicious grin before they went up in smoke. He was clad in heavy armor to protect himself from his own explosions, but he wasn't tanky at all. He looked like a juggernaut, but he'd be as fragile as 6? Oh, that rings a bell, yeah. Anyway, Riot realized that Ivan's design and gameplay didn't match, and instead of forcing it, they split his concept into 2 champions. 6, as I mentioned before, and Nautilus, who took on Ivan's heavy armor and became the durable juggernaut that he looked like. Number 12, we have the Paper Mage. Sounds pretty boring, but the Paper Mage was Riot's attempt at something truly unique. A mage who manipulated words to create powerful effects, summoning spells straight from the pages of a book. But as development went on, the concept shifted into rune-based magic that detonated runes for devastating bursts of power. Riot just struggled to make this word-wielding wizard look cool, and his source of magic was just too unique to fit into League. Instead of forcing him into the game, they scrapped the idea entirely, and probably for the best. We all know how much of a headache Rise has been to balance. At number 13, we have Priscilla, the Spider Queen. This was meant to be League's original spider-themed champion before release. A ranged fighter with a mana-based kit, she had a dark and eerie presence, one that was eventually deemed too unrefined for release. But her influence, that stuck around for years. Priscilla's Blessing, an item that was introduced in Dominion, was named in her honor, even though it didn't last long before being removed. Meanwhile, her artwork and spells icons lurked in the game files, a haunting reminder of what could have been. Fans even petitioned Riot to bring her back, gathering over 24,000 votes. At number 14, we have Rob Blackblade, the Avengerer. Some champions leave behind a legacy while others vanish without a trace. Rob Blackblade belongs to the latter. A stealthy knife-wielding adventurer, Rob was designed to be a Slayer archetype, relying on crits, ambushes, and precision attacks. Something was missing. According to Riot, he just didn't inspire them. His design lacked a strong thematic identity, and nothing in his kit felt worth salvaging. Stealth-enhanced stunts, lethal daggers, and bravado-fueled crits all seemed great on paper, but none of it truly fit into League's growing roster. Number 15, Taboo, the Voodoo Shaman. As one of the few remaining Voodoo Shamans of Jugos, Taboo walked the path of the forgotten. Taboo's kit revolved around manipulating life and death, finding allies and enemies alike in supernatural pacts. His tattoo spell linked him to another, sharing damage and healing, while his circle of ancestors called upon spirits to harm foes and men allies. Pacify, as the name suggests, would pacify enemies for a few seconds. Soul Drain would tether Taboo to a target, stealing its soul, dealing damage while regenerating for the same amount each second. Number 16 is Urf the Manatee. This is a pretty special one. Sometimes Riot likes to mess with the players, but not every joke they make land the way they expected. Urf the Manatee started as a 2010 April Fool's joke, complete with a full champion reveal lore and abilities. It seemed too detailed to be fake, so when players realized that Riot had no intention of actually releasing him, they weren't laughing. The backlash was immediate. Hundreds of players took to the forums demanding Urf to be added to the game. Riot, instead of caving, doubled down. They claimed that during development Urf had been killed by Warwick, and therefore he could never be released. But they didn't leave it at that. On April 1st they unveiled Urf Warwick, a skin that quickly became a legend in its own right. Though he never made it to the Rift as a champion, his legacy is everywhere, from skins to Easter eggs to special events, and of course, final resting place strapped to Warwick's back, forever a reminder of the greatest joke champion that never was. At number 17 we have Will, the Hydrosoul. Deep in a secluded temple by the Corban Sea, a fanatical high priest named Soterius became infamous for his rituals of rebirth. Each day he would drag an unwilling soul to the shoreline, forcing them beneath the crashing waves until their lungs filled with water. Then just before their death claimed them, he would revive them, declaring them reborn as his followers. For years this cult flourished, and his obsession with rebirth only grew. Convinced that drowning himself would grant him a divine transformation, Soterius commanded his followers to submerge him in the abyss. But as the cold darkness consumed him, his prayers were finally answered, not by gods, but by ancient forces from beyond. Reborn as Will, the Hydrosoul, he emerged with new power, devoted entirely to the will of the immortals. Anyone who doesn't like and subscribe is destined to have their wife take their kids and leave in the future.